Hello. Welcome to Shakespeare, Lit 221. I am your professor, Dan Salerno. And because of the sort of quirk or the oddity of our schedule, meeting only once a week and that day being on a Monday, it's still going to be a while before we meet, not till the 13th. And so I thought it would be prudent at least to talk to you a little bit in asynchronous video form. It's something that we've all gotten used to over the past couple of years or a year and a half, whatever it is. And I'm thankful that we get to have live Zoom meetings at least. But until we get the ball rolling with that, I thought it would at least be good to have what would have been sort of like the first class had we had a live meeting on this past Monday. And just sort of to maybe talk a little bit about the class, what the expectations are, talk about the syllabus a little bit, things like that. So first things first, the textbook. The info is on the syllabus, but it's the Norton Shakespeare Essential Plays and Sonnets, the 3rd edition. You do need the book for this class because not only are we reading these Shakespeare plays, and these are works that require a lot of. Hang on a second. That's actually better. There's a light shining directly on me. Looked like I was about to get abducted by a UFO or something. All right. So not only does this book have the texts of all the plays we'll be reading, all the poems we'll be reading, right, but it's full of additional supplemental information that I'll be assigning that you'll be expected to have at least a working knowledge of. And that I realize that nobody likes buying textbooks, and of course, the bare texts of Shakespeare plays are available on the internet. But I want to say that when you're studying Shakespeare, or even just trying to enjoy Shakespeare, having a good scholarly edition of Shakespeare, not just some text you pulled off the internet, is really helpful. And we all want to be on the same page textually, and in terms of the supplemental material. So if you don't have the book yet, you should. You'll need it at your earliest convenience. It should be available in the bookstore at the college, or of course you can order it to get it delivered. I mentioned this on Moodle, but I'll reiterate that you want to get your hands on that as soon as possible. And I've given you an assignment already. You may have noticed on the Moodle page for this week, I've given you an assignment. Some material from the general introduction of the book and a few sonnets to look at for next time. It's actually quite a lot that I've assigned, and that won't typically be the case. Normally for the supplemental material, it will be very small in relation to the actual plays. But to sort of get our grounding, I thought it would be better to assign a little more rather than risk and you not feeling ready to go on the first day. I don't know. You shouldn't necessarily feel like you have to read every single word right away. It's something that you can do over time. The most important thing for next time is probably the introduction to the sonnets and the sonnets that I've assigned, because I do want to begin discussing Shakespeare's language and his poetry and his versification at our Monday meeting. And that will, of course, we'll begin that discussion by looking at these sonnets, which are short, compact, but very dense, full of the same kinds of versification and rhetorical flourishes that we'll find in Shakespeare's play, just in a much more compact form. In some ways, the sonnets are more difficult. In some ways, they're easier. But in any case, please do. Here, let me show you. So I'm sharing my screen here. Here is the course site. Whoops. Yeah, that's it. Course site. Just click. Here we go. And hopefully you've all found your way here. In the introduction section, I've got the link to the syllabus. Obviously, that course introduction class on the 6th. I made that mistake because I'm not used to starting before Labor Day. So, I was making the syllabus like, okay, we obviously don't have class the first week because the semester didn't start on Monday. So the next Monday after that was the 6th. And it wasn't until a few days later that I was like, oh, wait, that's Labor Day. So I had to fix that. And I apologize for that mistake. But, every week going forward, we should be, this video is making up for that. I'm just going to introduce the class and the readings that you're going to do for next time will prepare you for the first discussion on Monday. Okay, so we've got the course syllabus here. I'll say a little bit more about that in a second. But let me just say, for starters, like, I've taught this class many times, but never online. So, like everybody, it's an adaptation for me. Actually, I was teaching this class in the spring of 2020 when the college shut down. So I did kind of turn that class into an online class, but it was really rushed, and nobody knew what the hell they were doing, and we were all just sort of scared that the world was coming to an end. So I don't really count that experience. I did have an opportunity last semester to teach World Lit 1 online and in a similar format to this, one hybrid, one discussion per week, one meeting per week, virtual. And that went pretty well. So I feel pretty confident that we can do a good job here. Here's my info. Whoops, that meeting time is wrong. Oh, that happened. Let me fix that. I think it's Monday. 8, 9, 15. All right. Pause here. Whoops. All right. So we meet once a week, Monday, 8 to 9:15. These are my office hours when you can meet me in person, 11, 12, or by appointment. I only come in on Thursdays this semester. I can come in other days. So I'm not making. Virtual office hours would be fine. We can do a Zoom meeting. We can whatever. But if you want to come in and talk to me in person, like the old days, that's when you can find me. And if that time doesn't work and you really want to meet in person, I can always arrange another time. Right. So here's the text, right, and here's the ISBN number. Just make sure you get the right text. If you accidentally got the second edition or something, it wouldn't be the end of the world. But when I'm giving you page numbers during a discussion, they won't always line up. So you'll have to cross-reference with acts, scene, line, and everything. It would just be easier to make sure you have the right edition. There may be copies in the library. Certainly not enough for everybody, but if you're the lucky person who gets it, or there might be a couple of them, and it's always an option. If you really are struggling with, being able to get the book financially, let me know, and I'll do what I can to help you. But otherwise, I really need everybody to get the book. So we're gonna read 6 plays, 2 histories, 2 tragedies, 2 comedies. I hope anyway. You never know. Fall behind, things happen, but the goal is to read 6 plays. How do you pick 6 Shakespeare plays? It's really difficult. Like, for the tragedies, how do you leave out Macbeth and Othello? Well, we're reading Hamlet and King Lear. It's just the way it is. I would love to do Othello also, and I'd love to do Macbeth and Antony and Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. But one of the things I want to do in this class is give a sense of Shakespeare's generic breadth, right? He doesn't just write tragedies, even though that's what we most associate with Shakespeare. So 2 histories, which can feel fairly tragic at times. We'll read Henry IV, Part 1, and Henry V. 2 tragedies, we'll read Hamlet and King Lear. And 2 comedies, As You Like It and Measure for Measure, which is more of a problem play than a comedy, but I'll say more about that when we get to it. Measure for Measure is one of my favorite Shakespeare plays. A little bit more obscure than some of the others, but I think we'll like it. All right. And, of course, when you study Shakespeare, you have to learn a little bit about the context. And I don't want the class to be, a history class, but along the way, we will be learning about, and I will be talking about things like, the social and political situation of Elizabethan and Jacobean England, what we mean by terms like Renaissance or early modern, and religious questions. What is a Protestant? What is a Catholic? Questions that don't matter that much to us, but mattered a lot to Shakespeare and his audience. So be prepared for that kind of context, and it's another reason why this text is so helpful, because it's chock full of good stuff about context that should be useful to all of us. All right. Just a little bit of background about myself. I'm a community college professor, which means I mostly every community college English professor, we mostly our teaching load is composition, right? I teach 101 and 201, and that makes up the majority of my teaching load most semesters. But in terms of my background, I have a PhD in Renaissance literature from Boston University. I did my dissertation was on religious issues in Shakespeare. So this is about as close to being in my wheelhouse as you can get. Although it's been 7 years now since I finished 6 years since I finished my PhD, and so it'll be 7 years this November, right? So I've forgotten a lot of things I used to know because I mostly teach composition, but I think I can still handle it. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I'm being a little facetious, but I'm not necessarily an active scholar in the field the way I used to be, but I still occasionally give talks and conference papers and things like that on Shakespeare. Most recently at the Renaissance Society of America conference in Toronto in 2019, which was the last RSA conference before COVID. So I haven't gone to any conferences since. We'll see if we ever have live in-person conferences again. I don't know. All right. So there's a section on student learning objectives. You can look through that yourselves. I want to talk about the grading. Okay. For the grading, there are basically 4 grades in the class: 2 papers, 2 exams that make up the bulk of the bulk of your grade, right? So that accounts for 80%. Then there will also be occasional reading quizzes, and I'm doing reading quizzes in part because, it's just you need some incentive to read, otherwise people don't read. It's just the way it is. The quizzes will be, obviously everything will be Moodle based. The exams, I have to look into how I'm going to proctor the exams. If I'm going to do my typical exam, which is an identification exam, I have to come up with a format that works, that will be compatible with an online exam. Otherwise, I might just switch to a kind of traditional, more objective exam. But the exams are designed to test whether you're actually doing the readings, right? That you've absorbed the material, that you can tell me what happens in the plays, that you can identify characters and situations, right? That's testing your objective. Did you read the plays and do you understand them? And whereas the papers are testing your analytical abilities. Or can you tell me something interesting about these plays? And so there'll be one short paper early in the semester and a long final paper, and as well as the 2 exams. All right. And the quizzes that I'll give will be sort of unannounced and occasional. And they'll be short, like 5 questions, just simple things about the reading that I would like you to be able to answer. All right. Purely objective, whose skull is Hamlet talking to, or whatever. All right. All right. So I do give bonuses for participation. Now, like, so in a Zoom class or what a WebEx class, um, I've had mixed experiences with this. I would really like you to be there with your cameras on. I can't force you to put your cameras on, and then I also understand the reasons why you might not want to have your cameras on. So it's not a directive, but as much engagement as you can give me, I would appreciate it. I do give bonuses for good class participation. If you want to, if you have something to say, right, I want you to say it, and so I will. It will. The meetings will be discussions, right? They're not going to be lectures. I'm not going to be just sort of going through PowerPoints or whatever. We'll be talking to each other, hopefully. And the more you talk, the more possibility you could get a participation bonus to your final grade. All right. I just got some stuff here about late papers. And I will be taking a 10. Don't turn in papers late. I have to penalize them. But if you ask me for an extension, I'll almost always give you an extension if you ask for one, if you communicate with me, right? Because I am understanding. I'm certainly not one to never miss a deadline or be late or whatever. I understand. What you don't want to do is not hand in a paper and then just forget, never say anything. Right? Then you'll get a 0. But even if it's the day the paper's due and you write me like, Professor, I'm just not going to get it in. Can I do anything? I'll work with you on that. Okay. And I'll say, okay, how much time do you need? And here's how much time you can have, etc. Attendance. I take attendance. I will take attendance every day at our meeting, and 3 absences is the maximum you can get before you would be penalized. That's plenty considering we only meet once a week. That's 14 meetings or so, right? That's 3 absences is plenty. And since it's virtual, there's not that many reasons to be absent. I mean, if you're deathly ill, okay, right? But, even in a pinch, if you're like dialing in from like your car or whatever, you have to drive I don't know, whatever. They're virtual meetings. We should always be here. It's not that hard. Things do happen, of course, so you get the absences if you need them, but I don't think you should need more than 3. All right. So for the 13th, we're going to be discussing, I'm going to be talking a little bit about Shakespeare's world, and I want to talk about his language and his versification. That is how he writes poetry. And then I've assigned some sonnets for you to read. We think of Shakespeare as a dramatist, as a playwright, and he certainly is, of course, the most famous that ever lived. Without question, the most famous. Doesn't mean best. Best is totally subjective, but I think it's objectively true that he's the most famous dramatist that ever lived. But to me, personally, Shakespeare is a poet first, and that's what I think the reason why Shakespeare endures is less about his drama, his sense of plot and character and things like that, and action, and much more about his language. And the poetry that we'll be learning about in the sonnets is the same thing that he uses in his plays, to a certain extent, right? His line, the famous iambic pentameter, the Shakespearean line, is the same in the sonnets as it is in the plays. And so learning about how Shakespeare's versification works is important at the outset. And we'll talk a little bit about his language and what's difficult about it, and what's not so difficult about it. Right. And then the first unit is on the history plays. The second unit is on tragedy. The midterm will actually be midway halfway through the tragedy unit, just timing wise, that's how it works out. So the midterm will cover the first 3 plays we read: Henry IV Part 1, Henry V, and Hamlet. And then the final will cover the I don't want to say that, but whether the final will be cumulative or not is something we'll talk about later. But we'll then read, after the midterm, read King Lear, read As You Like It. And then we'll end with Measure for Measure, with the final exam on the 20th. All right. And because it's, of course, a hybrid class, that exam may be something you won't necessarily have to do on the 20th, or maybe you'll have to do it by the 20th. I haven't decided yet. I have to make the exam first before I can tell you what's going to be on it. Last semester in world literature, I think there's some people from that class in this class. I eventually just decided to scrap the exams because I couldn't wrap my mind around how I was going to do it the way I wanted to. But I've gotten some advice and some since then. I've learned a few things that will help me, I think, craft exams that will work in a hybrid format. So, all right. And I think that's good for you because in my experience, students tend to do well on the exams. The exams are like easy. You just have to have done the reading and you'll be fine. All right. So I have a statement on plagiarism here. I'm sure you've seen, you don't need me to talk about that and the writing center, etc. All right. That's basically the syllabus. Okay. And, I'm sure you'll have some questions. We can talk more next time in person on Monday. But I just wanted to just touch base with you, give you a little bit of the lay of the land. So again, we've got those readings for Monday. Most important is to read the sonnet section, right? The introduction and the sonnets themselves, but also the background material you'll want to be working through, at least beginning to work through. And then we'll start with our course of 6 plays that will take us through December. We don't meet in person. I don't know if screening. Usually in my Shakespeare class, I have at least a little bit of opportunities to screen films and things like that. That's more awkward in an online format. Like in my world literature class, I tried to screen the scene from Troy with Brad Pitt, and I had all kinds of technical problems. It's possible I will sometimes give you video clips to watch on your own, but I don't think we'll be doing that in class time. Because it's hard enough just to get the WebEx to work without trying to share a screen that's streaming video, Other than that, if you have questions about where we go from here, feel free to email me. Otherwise, we'll talk on Monday, 8 a.m. I will post the WebEx link in the forum, in the announcements forum on the Moodle page, so don't worry about that. And we'll go from there, okay? So you know what you need to read, and you know what we'll be doing on Monday. And I hope it will be a good semester. I'm looking forward to it. I know, again, these things are a little odd, but we're starting to get used to it. And hopefully by next semester, we'll mostly be back on campus. I'm back on campus 1 day a week. I think I mentioned that. So that's been weird. Teaching in a mask. I don't know what's worse, teaching in a mask or teaching virtually. I guess I'll find out this semester. But please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. All right. And I will see you all on Monday, 8 a.m. Thank you.